This is the highly anticipated Pimax Crystal Super Micro-OLED version, and not only is this using the brand new Sony displays but also the new concave view lenses developed by Pimax. These are the same lenses and displays that will be used in the upcoming Pimax Dream Air. Let's test it and see how good it is and how it stacks up against the other 3 optical engines available for the Pimax Crystal Super. First off, some subjective thoughts on my experience with the Crystal Super Micro-OLED after testing it thoroughly over the past week. By the way, there are discount links in the description if you'd like to support the channel, but let's keep this train rolling. The number one thing that jumps at you from the very first second after putting this on are the colors and the clarity. At 100% render resolution, the Pimax Crystal Super Micro-OLED reports 5640 by 5356 per eye in SteamVR. I'll talk about the new lenses in a minute, but one thing that plagues every Micro-OLED headset is glare. And I've gotta say, this is the absolute minimal amount I've ever seen in an OLED headset. There is still some present, but even in extreme tests such as the glare test in Test HMD, it's considerably less than the Big Screen Beyond 2, Play for Dream MR, or PSVR 2. In actual games, I pretty much can't see it at all in 99% of situations. For example, in Kayak VR on the Mexico Caves level, all the other headsets I've mentioned really struggle to be enjoyable due to glare. But in the Crystal Super Micro-OLED, oh man, I have never seen this level looking more gorgeous, and my jaw was constantly dropping while paddling through here. The contrast levels, colors, and lack of glare are absolutely outstanding, and the new concave view lenses are doing an incredible job of really showcasing these displays. On a separate note, I jumped into a daytime level in Kayak VR to check for Mura and test the brightness and ghosting, which are again 3 aspects that most Micro-OLED headsets struggle with pretty badly. Well, there is a very slight amount of ghosting, but very little compared to my other OLED headsets. And I'm happy to report that I cannot notice any Mura at all. With the brightness set to 90%, not only is it way brighter than I was expecting, but it doesn't seem to have any adverse effects on the visuals, which I'm very satisfied to see. For comparison, in the Beyond 2, I'm running at around 60% brightness, which is considerably dimmer than the Crystal Super Micro-OLED at the same 60%. And the Beyond 2 also has way more ghosting. So far, good job Pimax. Now it's time to jump into the objective measurements and other aspects of the new Micro-OLED module for the Crystal Super. Okay, let's talk a bit about the new concave view lenses because they're a very interesting design. As the name would suggest, they're concave, which not only helps with field of view, which we'll get to in a second, but also means you can get really close to them without your eyelashes touching them thanks to the shape. The edge-to-edge clarity is excellent as well, and probably as close to the near perfect lenses of the Quest 3 as I've seen yet. But let's see how the lenses and displays stack up on raw numbers. So jumping into the measurements, I actually tested 2 different software configurations of the Micro-OLED optical engine. On the default one, I got 116 degrees of horizontal field of view, which I've gotta admit is way more than I was expecting, and 92 degrees vertical. In terms of binocular overlap, with this default config, I got 76.35% overlap, which is pretty decent, but I'm not really super sensitive to this, so take my opinion with a grain of salt. If you are a stereo overlap freak though, the second configuration might be for you. With this, you basically give up a tiny bit of field of view for more overlap. To be more specific, the FOV went down from 116 by 92 to 114 by 90, but the overlap went up from 76 to almost 80%. And I know some of you like it when I do the math, so you'd be giving up about 1.7% horizontal and 2.2% vertical FOV for an extra 4.4% in stereo overlap. But how does all this stack up to the other Crystal Super Optical engines, the 50ppd, 57ppd, and the ultra-wide? I have separate dedicated reviews for each of them, but now that I have all 4, here's the breakdown and which one I'd recommend. One aspect which I was not expecting is the weight. It's much lighter than any of the other versions, and you can definitely feel that when wearing the headset. It still has eye tracking and the motorized IPD, same as they all do, so I'm guessing it's the lenses and displays that account for the significant weight reduction. But let's have a look at all the other metrics. First, here are the resolutions, field of view, and stereo overlap for all 4, so feel free to pause the video here to have a look. To simplify your decision based on your main priorities, here are some rankings between all of them. In terms of raw resolution, the ultra-wide and 50ppd optical engines are very close at roughly 79 and 78 million pixels, with the new Micro-OLED in third place at 60 million pixels and the 57ppd in last place with 40 million pixels. If field of view is your top feature, then as expected, the ultra-wide comes first with the 50ppd second, Micro-OLED third, and the 57ppd last. In terms of binocular overlap, we've got pretty pretty much a tie between the 50 ppd and the Micro-OLED using the alternate software configuration. 57 ppd comes next and the ultra-wide last. All that being said, raw numbers can only give you a rough idea and not the full story, so here's a through the lens look at all four, and this is shot using my iPhone 17 Pro Max. But as I've mentioned many times in the past, take any through the lens footage with a grain of salt because it cannot fully convey what your eyes would see. So now I've finally tested all of the optical engines available for the Pimax Crystal Super. Which would I go for if I could only have one? Well, from a visuals perspective, the answer is simple, and it's the new Crystal Super Micro-OLED, but it's not quite that simple. The colors, contrast and clarity are all incredible, the concave view lenses are top notch, and the field of view and binocular overlap are more than I was expecting them to be. There's no Mura, barely any glare, and with it sitting somewhere in the middle in terms of resolution, performance has been very good. So where's the catch? Well, at least currently the Micro-OLED module can only go as high as 90Hz refresh rates, which doesn't bother me personally, but I know it will affect the decision for some of you, so it's important that I mention it. Also, it does seem to generate a bit more heat than the other ones. It never got to a point where it's uncomfortable, but it's worth mentioning. With all that being said, for me it's proving to be a tough decision between the ultra-wide, my previous favorite version of the Crystal Super, and this new Micro-OLED. The colors and contrast are significantly better on the OLED, but I'm also a sucker for a huge field of view, and the ultra-wide is also brighter. But it's also heavier, harder to run at full resolution, and well, not Micro-OLED. So I think I'm gonna have to give the crown to the new Crystal Super Micro-OLED module. It looks absolutely stunning, the field of view is absolutely plenty for me and more than I was expecting, and it's way more comfortable due to the weight reduction. So if you're okay with the 90Hz refresh rate and the lower field of view, I'd pick this over the ultra-wide, especially if you play any games with dark or colorful environments. But keep in mind, it's really damn close, so if field of view really matters, get the ultra-wide because you're not going to be sorry either way. If you have any questions, let me know because I always try to answer every comment I get, and in case you decide to pick up anything I've gone through today, please consider supporting the channel by using the links in the description and use code VRMANCAVE80 for $80 off the Crystal Super QLED versions. I'll catch you soon, my guys. Have a good one and happy holidays. Cheers.